inevitable. Number 10 and number 22 overall for Novak Djokovic in Melbourne this year was inevitable. It felt that way as we drew the curtain down on 2022. It felt that way once we had a draw revealed for the 2023 Australian Open. And pretty much every step along the way this fortnight, it still felt like there was only going to be one way that this tournament ended, and that was with Novak Djokovic raising the Australian Open trophy for a 10th time. It goes without saying, of course, that this venue down under in Melbourne has seen Djokovic's greatest conquests, and Rod Laver Arena, of course, has been the court that has brought him the most success throughout his storied and legendary career. And you'd have to say, what a difference a year makes. I'm sure that even all the way back to a year ago when Novak was denied entry into Australia, he was always eyeing a return here at some point. We have heard it time and time again throughout the course of his time in Australia this year, both in Adelaide and in Melbourne, about how Australia has held such a special place in his heart over the years. And you could even take it back to the fall last year, once it looked like he was going to get the green light to play, and ultimately did in Australia in 2023. It seemed like that was a very single-minded objective for Novak once the indoor season came along. And for him, having not played since Wimbledon, he looked like he just wanted to get some momentum going, re-establish himself as the best player in the world heading into Australia, and really prime himself to peak for this year's tournament. And boy, did he ever. By the numbers, his 10th Australian Open title this year was his most dominant to date in terms of sets and games conceded. Beyond the numbers, the eye test certainly told the same story. The guy was as imperious as ever. And as a whole, I think this tournament was a microcosm pretty much of what has made Djokovic 3.0 so great. I have talked about it before. In fact, a couple of my recent videos I've said that I feel like Novak Djokovic really has this post-prime thing down to a science. And I think that was on full display throughout the course of this tournament. Obviously, you have the noted improvements in the volleying, and obviously I think the biggest one being the serve. That shot seems to improve just about every subsequent time you see it. And he's just the complete package at this point. There's no place to hide. There's no place to go for security. He has so many ways to beat you. And you saw it during this tournament, for much of the first week, that hamstring looked to be a problem. The movement, especially at the end of his range, seemed to be, I think, visibly compromised, especially in those second and third round matches against Kochwad and Dimitrov. But he gets in situations like that, and he can just up the aggression from the baseline, start going bigger on first and second serves. And somehow while doing so, it still seems like the tennis he plays is just as high percentage. That was certainly a theme throughout much of the early part of this tournament, and it continued really throughout the entire tournament. He was hitting his forehand in particular a good deal bigger throughout the course of this tournament. I believe he averaged a little over 80 miles an hour throughout the course of this tournament, and you very rarely see that, particularly from post-elbow surgery Novak. And so it really just comes back to just how many tools he has at his disposal now. Novak declared 2 years ago, mid-2021, that he felt that this phase in his career was the most complete that he felt as a player, and I've never disagreed with that. He showed throughout this tournament, fighting injury. He's perfectly capable of playing really aggressive-minded, hugging the baseline tennis. But at the same time, you just know he still has that gear in pressure, clutch situations where he's just not going to miss. It's watertight. No better example than that set point Tsitsipas had in the second set. Djokovic just so secure off the ground. Real display of controlled aggression, but you just knew he was not going to cough up an error to give up the set. And obviously, once he got a look that he wanted, a ball that floated a bit, he pounced on it, forehand winner. really just symbolic, and again, that is what has made Djokovic 3.0 so great. The game just seems so fluid, and just about every aspect of it seems so under control. And it's been documented on this channel that whenever this debate has arose of whether Djokovic 3.0, meaning, ever since he broke out of his slump in 2018, through his 30s basically, if that's the best version of him, I have always disagreed. I will still take 2011, 2015, early 2016, but there is no denying that Novak Djokovic makes the most compelling case we have ever seen in men's tennis for if a player in his 30s truly is the best he has ever been. Djokovic now, ever since 2018, in his age 31 through 36, has accumulated 10 Grand Slams. That is no joke. It really is reminiscent of Serena Williams' stint throughout her 30s, where I believe she also won 10 Grand Slams. And throughout that period in her career, that is really where she embellished much of her GOAT case. And to me, Novak Djokovic is doing much of the same in his 30s, and it doesn't show any signs of slowing down anytime soon, as he now returns to the top of the men's tennis world. And moving forward, sky is the limit. I said after Roland Garros 2021, I just can't bet against the guy anymore, whether it's to reach XYZ accolade or snatch victory from the jaws of defeat for the umpteenth time, etc., etc. It's just hard to put a cap on anything he's capable of. In my eyes, he has been the statistical GOAT ever since that aforementioned 2021 French Open. And now, as he co-holds the major record, I don't think there's really any argument against that. Obviously, different people have different criteria. I think that's perfectly fine, but that's as far as I'm going to go into GOAT debate semantics. All in all, I think that everything that I've laid out between the return to Australia and playing as brilliantly as he did through injury, and of course, receiving probably better crowd support in Australia than he ever had before, I think putting all that together, you can really understand very well why Novak, in his own words, described this win as the most special of his career. And, regardless of what fan base you fall into, whether you root for or against the guy, really heartwarming scenes, seeing the emotion pour out of him in ways that we hadn't really seen before. I remember when he was younger, his celebrations seemed to have a lot more youthful exuberance behind them. As he's gotten older, it seems like they've gotten borderline stoic whenever he's won. But you could tell, obviously this one was different. This one meant so much to him. And yeah, congrats to Novak and all of Nole fam. But that will do it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, it would be much appreciated if you could drop a like and help this video perform better in YouTube's algorithm. Also, it would be much appreciated if you could subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I would like to reach 1,000 subscribers throughout the course of this year, so any subscription would go a long way in helping me achieve that goal. We begin this 2023 season with a very familiar sight, and there's plenty more where that came from on my end. So thank you again for watching, and of course, I will see y'all in the next one.